Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Library Committee of November 30th, 2023 at, well, not quite 8:30 a.m., a little bit behind. And I did, just before the call to order, wanted to quickly say thank you very much to staff for accommodating and shuffling around so we could get this in time for motions for final budget. So the call to order, I will now call on Julie to do our roll call, please.
Regional Chair Redmond.
Present.
Councillor Foxton.
Present.
Councillor Nowak.
Present.
Chair Salonen.
Present.
Councillor Shantz.
Present.
Great. I would like to acknowledge the land on which we gather today as the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Chinanautan peoples. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today, their achievement and their contributions to our community. Does anybody have any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we will call on Carol Pfeiffer, our financial analyst, to reduce our first report.
You're on mute. Julie, were you going to share the report?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so the recommendations are that the Library Committee approve the budget with a net expenditure of $3,548,700 and a net property tax levy of $2,996,000. Approve the capital budget and for 2024 and the 25 to 2033 capital forecast, and refer the budget to the Planning and Budget Committee for consideration. So if you could just move down a little bit, please. So some of the highlights are that the proposed expenditure, as already mentioned, $3,500,000, which is an increase of $266,000 in expenses, an increase of non-tax revenue of $44,000, and an overall increase of $222,000, which is an 8% increase. And this increase is largely due to increases in staffing costs, basically just COLA and benefits, no increased staffs. General inflation and facility operating costs. Actually, the one thing I didn't mention in the report is that there is also some money put aside from the equity fund, both expenses and a contribution from the reserve, so a net effect of $0. And moving on to page 2. Also, we had in 2023 budget put $200,000 to lower the budget increase in 2023. So we were reducing this by $100,000. That was the thought. And so after adjusting for the rural assessment of growth of 2.8%, the net tax rate impact is 5.1. The library capital plan is $1.1 million with $327,000 of expenditures in 2024. So if we could maybe move to the Appendix A. Okay, so this again just shows what we were talking about for the budget. So you can see on the budget change column, which is the second one from the right, the operating expenses going up by 184, but that includes the amount from the equity fund, which is 113,000. And the other parts that are in the other operating expense is some increases to the facility costs. And then down in the revenue section, the contribution from reserves is showing as 28,000, which is correct, but that is kind of a net effect of the 113 from equity, which is an increase to the reserve, and then a little bit of increase from RDC, and then the reduction from the library capital reserve. So that's netted into 28,000. And then if we could go to Appendix B. So this is the 10-year capital. The large amount for 2024 is the radio frequency identification program. And so I guess that's a large project. And some of the other costs are replacing the library vehicle. So those are the large items for 2024. Yeah, so back, if we could go back to the report. Yeah, maybe page 3. Okay, yeah, so basically then in the financial implications, so the net tax impact is 5.1%, which is an increase of $3.60 per household, which comes then to a total of $74.38. So is there any questions?
I'm not seeing any questions at this time.
Give me a second. There we go.
Oh, okay, Sue.
Thank you, through you, the chair. Radio frequency identification. Can you explain to me what that is?
Absolutely. So through the chair, this is how we track the collection itself. So we apply little tiny radio frequency things to each of our books that we will be circulating. And so rather than using barcodes, et cetera, like we're using at the moment, we'd have little radio frequency things in each of our collection circulation items. And that allows us to check them in and out in a much more streamlined way, track everything, know the location of everything. So that's the activity that's currently going on. At the moment, we're applying all of these little thingies, and then we'll have to change a little bit in the way of, so rather than having little guns that we bleep all of the barcodes, it'll be a shift in the infrastructure that we use to actually check books in and out as well. But that means that we're prepared for the future for doing things like self-checkout if that's something that we want to move into, et cetera. So that's what the RFID project is.
Have they been used before? Have they been successful? And I wonder about water damage and stuff like that.
Good question. So they are very successful in many, many other libraries. This is certainly where the entire sector is moving. I'd have to find out about water damage. I don't know that that's been an issue anywhere else, but I can certainly find out if that's something that we should be concerned about.
Yeah, because books tend to get wet, depending on who's got them, including me. The $113,000 for equity, what is that for?
Right, so that's for a lot of programming that we're currently doing. So we're working with, when you look at the operations report, there's a little bit more information in there about some of the work that we're doing to try to diversify our collection and the programming that we're doing around that. So that's general programming funds that allow us to do, that are supporting us to do more diverse programming out in the community. So everything from the work that we're doing with the Multicultural Center to have settlement workers coming into the libraries, et cetera, actual programs themselves that are targeted at encouraging conversations within our communities about equity, diversity, inclusion, et cetera, reconciliation.
Okay, thank you. Do we have the chart that shows the different municipalities and the price per household for libraries? I saw the graphs before. My CAO can get it for me.
Yeah,
I'd just like to see where we fall, because the last time I checked it, I thought we were in a $40 range, and but that's a couple years back at $74 range. Is it $74 per household? Did you say? Yeah. So I'd like to check that card, because that would make us almost double what the average was for other municipalities. But I'll look into that. Don't worry about that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh. And Councillor Shantz.
Thank you. Just a question about the tracker. Is there any concern with confidentiality? I find it kind of creepy that if I take a book out, you're going to track me where I take it?
Okay, I think this is probably some clarity is needed about what a radio frequency identification is. It doesn't actually, it's not an active thing, it's a passive thing that can be scanned. So it's like a barcode, only it's electronic so that it can, so it's not something that goes around with you and sends a little radio frequency.
Okay.
So that's not what it is. It's just the mechanism for actually doing the, so rather than it being a visual thing that scans a barcode, it's a electronic tag that can be scanned differently by a different type of scanner. So it is not an active thing sending out a signal about where you are at all.
That's fine. You said you would know where the books were, and I'm going, ooh.
So it's
You
we
want
know
your
where the books
ticket
are
in the bathroom,
when we
or-
scan them, not at any point in time. That, yes, okay.
Thank you for that. I did have another question, and it was about other operating. That's gone up 24%. And I think you addressed that, Carol, but can you explain that a little bit more? There was 113,000 that was.
That's from the equity fund. So that's what we had talked about earlier. Helen was mentioning some of the programming that was being done from the equity fund. So that's the large part of the 184. And then there's some facility costs that had gone up. For some of it's due to inflation, like on the utilities. There was increased cost for janitorial services and landscaping, snow removal, that type of thing.
Okay. I guess that's fine. Compensation and benefits says, excuse me, 2.8%, but I thought I saw something higher than that in the report. Am I just confusing that with the overall 8% maybe?
I think it was just normal increases, like cost of living and benefit increases on the salary line. There was no new staffing.
I guess the line where the levy increase is primarily due to increases in staffing, but the staffing numbers really only show 2%.
Right, staffing, and then as well as the other operating, which include the equity fund and the facility costs.
Okay, thank you.
Guards costs.
I just wanted some clarification on the 10-year capital. So I do see that there is funding starting to come through for the Wellesley branch. Is that in reference to what Councillor Nowak was asking in terms of staff investigating the feasibility of adding library facilities to the 2025-2026 budget in Wellesley Arena, or is that something else going on in Wellesley?
So through the chair, yes, that's what that particular line refers to, and that's our most recent communication with the township is this timeline, but it can be adjusted with each capital budget as we bring it forward.
Okay.
Yeah, if I may, we will probably have a better idea on whether that's going to fly or at all. We're reaching out to the community starting later this year, early next year, just to do a survey to see what what they want to see as far as library, as far as that extra land that we have now. So, probably by, I would think, the first quarter of next year, we'll have a better idea on whether that's a realistic, plan.
Great. Just wanted to make sure you had the funds there if that's what you go ahead with as a township.
Yeah, it's, I don't know how we would, I'm not even sure how we would fund, the capital and putting that on the bottom floor of an apartment complex. So there's a lot of ifs and buts about that yet.
Very good. Sue, you are back on my list. Were you?
Yeah, just a quick one. Sandy got me thinking about this radio frequency identification thing. So would it be a problem? Oh God. Would it be a problem taking a book on an airplane through customs?
So through the chair, the simple answer is no.
Okay. I just thought about it. Oh wow. Okay. Thank you.
So would it be helpful if we brought a presentation back to committee to better understand RFID and how it works and some of the pros and changes, et cetera? Would that be a helpful thing for committee?
Yeah, I think we're getting some general nods. Yes. I can also just confirm of being a part of a library system at university that used it. It's wonderful. You can put 100 books down and check them out all at once. It takes like 30 seconds. And to my knowledge, I was not being tracked. And I know I definitely brought library books on planes and made it safely. But yes, I think a presentation would be helpful. Thank you. Okay, seeing no, oh, yes, Councillor Shaw.
One more, and maybe I should go back and read the report again. Interdepartmental charges. What is in that line?
That would be charges, could be various things, but I believe that it's mainly IT related. So for licenses and software types of things, and sometimes it could also be contributions to the IT reserve for replacing computers.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, is that all of the questions at this time? Very good. I'm not seeing any more. So we do have a motion before us. And does anybody need me to read it, or is everyone good? Okay. In that case, may I please have a mover?
Could move it.
Moved by Councillor Nowak, seconded by Councillor Foxton. All those in favor, if you can just, sorry, if you can actually vote on e-scribe. I'm sorry. Used to being in my council chambers, we don't have fancy e-scribe over there. And that carries unanimously. Thank you. All right. I will now call on Helen Chimichira-Russell, Director of Cultural Services, to introduce the next report, please.
Thank you very much. So this is our operating report, which we bring every time we come and see you, to give you a sense of where we're at and how things are going out at the libraries. We do track what we call three key performance indicators. One is active card holders, one is in-person visits, and one is resource circulation, just to get an overall idea about use of the library system itself. We continue to track it year over year, but obviously keeping an eye on the significant impact that it had on, that the pandemic had on our library systems. So generally in the overall news is card holders, in-person visits, and resource circulation all continue to increase. This is year over year, so looking back on last year, which was a normal year, not just a pandemic year. So overall, we're finding that we're able to engage the community. People are coming in, finding they're coming and being members of the organization. We're bringing new material into the collection that is circulating well, and we are continuing to have programming and just general space usage that's bringing folks in. We've covered here a few key activities that we're working on to try to ensure that our library continues to be used and useful and interesting and engaging for the community. And many of these at the moment are looking at equity issues to ensure that this collection is as equitable and inclusive as possible. So the collection itself, engaging with what we're calling a diversity advocacy group. So that's something that started relatively recently and is partially supported by those equity funds that we talked about earlier through the budget. So ensuring that we're having lived experience voices coming into the library so that we understand how our services can be more equitable and ensure that everybody in our community feels that these are welcoming spaces and the collections that we circulate are useful and inclusive. Another one that we're noting there is the fact that we are working with the Multicultural Center on, as many other libraries across the region also accommodate settlement workers. Our rural branches as well are going to start to include that as a facility so that folks who are in the townships who are looking for settlement services are able to come into our rural library branches and access those rather than having to go into any city branches. And of course, one of the bigger ones is understanding that it's easier for folks to access library service if it's where they currently are. And of course, the Breslau branch and in that development is going to make a big difference. We're finding even with the satellite service that we're currently offering out there, the increase of usership out in Breslau is increasing significantly. And so the opening of the actual branch itself is going to make a tremendous difference in that community. That's what we're aiming for right now.
Very good. Councillor Foxton.
Thank you, Chair. A few things. Why was the Baden Library closed for a while? What did you do at the Baden Library?
Sorry? Oh, that was during the pandemic. During the pandemic, the library was closed. Or are you talking about...
no, the August to...
Yes. So that was Baden. Baden, there was a significant water main issue right in front of the building itself. So the branch itself was inaccessible for many months. We managed to keep a certain amount of service going and redirected the vast majority of it out to New Hamburg to ensure that folks in Baden were able to still access their collections.
Thank you. The other one I had was outreach to satellite libraries. Are we still doing that?
Yes, we are. So Clyde is probably our most active one, right? That still is working. And then Breslau, of course, is still a satellite branch at the moment. So we're finding that those two branches are working really well as satellite locations.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions, just in case anyone's e-scribe isn't working? Oh, Councillor Nowak.
I just figured out how to put my hand up there again. It's been a while. Do you track hours of operation? Has there been any? I've had a few requests in the village of Wellesley for some changes in the hours of operation. Is there any process that you go through to, metrics with regard to the best time to have these facilities open? So the request I've had would be Thursday nights and Fridays in Wellesley. Is that a possibility?
So through the chair, that's something that we're keeping a really close eye on, is making sure that we're understanding opening hours and how those are being received by the community. That's helpful feedback, and it's something we could certainly take away and look at. We are still we still have fewer public opening hours than we did pre-pandemic. Throughout the pandemic, we had fewer hours. Currently, with the budget size, we're making the best use as we possibly can with the people and the resources that we have to try to have them in the right places at the right time. I think in the new year, we'll be bringing forward a report so you can see far more detail about usage in different branches, and we can certainly try to break that down by hourly use to show how we're using the knowledge that we have about circulation and in-person visits to understand when those high demand hours are. And we can certainly look at how we can adjust those to make sure that we have the right hours in the right place. And if Wellesley, the town of, we can talk about what that might look like to adjust the hours there to meet the demand in that community.
I'd appreciate that. I think there'd probably be maybe a little bit of an uptick if you looked at Thursday nights and Fridays. But well, we'll see. I'd appreciate you having a look at that anyway.
Great. I see no more questions. This was just an item for information, so no need to vote on it. As for our committee tracking updates, I just wanted to make sure that Mayor Foxton did get answers to her questions earlier. As it says, anticipated date December of this year, but I know that we're meeting as close to December as possible.
Yeah, I don't think any of the questions have really been answered. I did get back to the CAOs and found out that there was very little discussion about the KPMG report. Practically none has actually happened. And they gave me the minutes of the meetings. So we still need to know whether, number one, we need to probably reevaluate the KPMG report and look at what we want to happen or move forward, and then so direct the staff.
So I see Bruce, CAO Lochner, if you'd like to comment.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. To Councillor Foxton's point, yeah, that would be helpful. I've reached out to my colleagues. I know they reached out as well, trying to set up a meeting. We're trying to get one before the holidays, if not in early January, to discuss exactly that and next steps. So if there's any direction the committee would like to provide to us in advance, happy to take that.
Would it be feasible to have the CAOs come to one of our library committee meetings and discuss the KPMG report and what we still see feasible in that report, or what we may have done from?
Certainly.
CAO Lochner, would you take that as direction, or would you require a motion or something?
I can take that as direction, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, great. And then I guess just to verify here, Councillor Foxton, that all of your other questions kind of all roll into that KPMG report working with town.
I believe so.
Very good. Does anybody have any other questions or items they wanted to add on to the tracking list? Okay. Seeing none. Any other business council would like to discuss? Okay, seeing none. Our next meeting, so we have a request from staff, if possible, that we could suggest the first library committee meeting of next year be sometime in April. This will allow time for staff to collect the annual comparator statistics from public libraries across Ontario as usual, as well as time to create and publish the report. And I believe that there's also, with Helen leaving us, there's some staffing changeovers for logistical reasons, but does anybody foresee any issues with that on committee? I don't know if you, yeah, I'm not certain what's feasible between staff or what the ask of committee might be. Otherwise, April is when they're asking that we can plan for. Sue?
I was hoping that we could get on this KPMG thing. This is sitting into year 3, and so I would prefer to see a meeting in February, even if it's just to discuss the KPMG one. Because I think we've sat too long. The longer things sit on a shelf, the more useless they become.
For sure. CAO Lochner, do you think that that would be feasible to do the KPMG come back for a meeting?
Absolutely.
And does committee have a preference if it's on committee day or a separate day in February?
No preference.
Yes, Chair Redmond.
I would suggest a separate day just because committees always run long, it seems.
Very good. Okay, that is our next meeting. And then just to adjourn, may I please have a mover? Moved by Councillor Foxton, seconded by Councillor Nowak. And please vote on e-scribe. And that carries. Thank you very much.